there's a hustle phase. We get out and we hustle, right? We're out there grinding away, trading time for dollars, just building up steam to create something. We go to more of a stable or secure phase. We've got a little bit more to cover the next month. We're not fighting to pull ourselves above the waterline. We've got some level of stability there, and then that's the time when it's like, okay, I've got things feeling relatively secure. I need to grow. I want to expand my empire, my enterprise, whatever that is. And then years down the road, it's like, okay, I'm ready to slow it down. I want to exit, take my capital, take my equity that I worked so hard to build all these years, and move it. You want to expound on any of those a little bit in the way that only you can do?
Yeah, well, so that is kind of the wealth creation framework, right?
Mhm.
If you are, and that's for entrepreneurs. Certainly, if you are not an entrepreneur, it's a similar process, but it's a little different because you're getting a W-2 wage. But ultimately, everybody's got to go through the same process, and very few are the exceptions. So you've got to hustle, right? You start out in this business, whatever the business is. Ultimately, that hustle phase is all about focusing on that balance sheet, getting your product together, getting your getting yourself positioned, getting the right cash in the bank, right? That there's a whole process to making sure you've got the right cash, the right debt, all of that, and get your balance sheet together. But then you go to the secure phase. A lot of people, they go from hustle to expand,
Mm.
and they forget about the secure phase. And the secure phase is maybe the most important part of your journey as an entrepreneur, because this is the spot where you prevent yourself from going backwards. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know what I'm talking about. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to stay away from going backwards, because that's the thing that ruins your ability to grow wealth, right? Anytime you go backwards, it just takes years of wealth building off of your plate. Our goal is to be slow, right? We don't have to be fast in growing wealth, because we know long term, if you go slow, long term, you'll get to your destination, right? And you can do it in a lot faster pace than if you end up going backwards. And so we go from hustle to secure. Secure is a very, very important spot. And then you go to expand, right? And expand is where you start to invest, right? Invest in people, invest in
Mhm.
advertising, start to really get to where your goals are, right? And start to improve your business, improve your softwares, improve your technology, make your business to where it is an asset, right? It is an asset, so that when it's time to exit, you have a true business to exit from. And no matter what your business is, every business is going to have an exit. You can either exit voluntarily, or you can exit by design. And I will tell you, if you exit by design, you're going to generate significantly more wealth than if you exit voluntarily. And so going through this process allows you to get to a spot where you can exit in your manner, the way you want to do it, so that you can actually generate the wealth that you want to generate in your life.
Marcus, what do you see as some of the biggest mistakes or errors in judgment when one is in the secure phase and desiring obviously to expand, but going too fast? What are some of the key things you see that sets them back to take those two steps back before they can actually really go and expand the right way?
Yeah, I think generally what happens is we get into that hustle phase, and we start seeing a little bit of that future cash coming in the bank, right? We can start tasting that ability. And what happens is, instead of going and investing in things like making sure your bookkeeping is squared away, making sure your LLC is documented appropriately, making sure you've got the right insurance in place, making sure that you've got a tax person in place, all the boring stuff that we
Mhm.
don't want to do as entrepreneurs, we forget about it all. And then we go straight into the expand phase, where we don't have the backbone of a business yet, right? We've just made a little bit of cash, but making cash is not running a business. Making cash is simply is a good hobby, right? It doesn't turn into a business until you actually get to the secure phase and build that foundation around it. Have that cash in the bank. Make sure you don't have bad debt. We talk about bad debt in the secure phase as being debt that isn't paying itself off. Well, if you've been in this hustle phase in your business and you've been cranking out credit cards, or maybe you've taken out a personal loan or whatever it takes, because we're hustling as entrepreneurs. In that secure phase, we've got to get that stuff paid off. And one of the big mistakes that I see people make is they go in and they don't pay that off, and they go to the expansion phase and just create more debt. And it becomes such a huge debt cycle that a little hiccup in the expansion phase, like what we could be seeing, well, like what we saw in 2023, right? A little hiccup there in 2024. Now we go backwards, and we go backwards to the hustle phase where we're just trying to get cash again. And it almost turns into a hobby again, because we're not making profits and we're barely generating any cash. But yet we've got all the complexities of an expanded business. And it's the worst thing that can happen to you is to go back from expand to hustle. And that's when you start seeing layoffs. That's when you start seeing, vendors getting missed payments. That's when you start seeing, loans getting called, right? That's all of that stuff becomes a terrible situation. And ultimately, bankruptcy can end up in that area too. So that's why it's so important that you walk through that phase and you know where you're at in each one of those phases too. It's self-recognition of, hey, yes, I've been in business for a couple of years and I've made a little bit of money, but that doesn't mean I'm ready to go run a 25 person, corporation that is generating $25 million in revenue, right? There's steps to this thing.